Hey guys! So, I've recorded so many videos over the last week or so, kind of going through every stage of my recovery from my operation. For those of you who this might be your first video, basically I had a breast reduction done last Wednesday, September 23rd, 2015, and it was a big decision that I took due to chronic pain and a lot of other issues that this was supposed to resolve and make my life, so much better. I knew there would be a very good recovery period where I would be kind of out of commission, not able to pick up my kids or cuddle them too closely or do too much. And I kind of, like I said, I've been taking little videos along the way, because I really intended to vlog about all of this. And as time's gone on, there's been a lot of things that have happened, and honestly, I don't have the energy to edit anything or put anything up. So I thought I'd just do one big blanket vlog to explain everything that's happened. Maybe it will help somebody who's about to go through this or going through this or has gone through this, but this has been my experience. So I had my surgery. I went in on last Wednesday, as I said. Surgery went fine. Everything was as I expected. I was briefed beforehand. I knew what to expect. I was sent home within, 2 hours of the surgery being done. I woke up in recovery, spent about an hour. My husband came pick me up, and I was home. That first night, I felt fine. And Thursday morning, I felt fine. Once Thursday afternoon kind of came in, I started feeling a little bit funky, a little bit under the weather. I said I thought I might be getting sick or something. I checked my temperature with my thermometer, and it said I had a minor fever, like 99, so I wasn't too worried. And as the day went on, the fever kept going up, and it kind of got up to the point where it was, 101, 102. And on my discharge papers, it was very clear if you have a fever over 100.4, you need to call the surgeon. So once it got up to that point, I was just kind of like, I really don't want to bother them, but maybe I should. So I called, and I talked to the surgeon on call, and he basically said, don't even worry about it. The post-op, you can often get a fever. It's from the anesthesia. It's, unless it's continual high-grade fever for a long time, don't even worry about it. So I was like, okay, that sounds good. And then Thursday night, I spent in agony. I was delirious. My fever had spiked. It was up to almost 104. It was basically, it would go where it would be 103, between 103 and 104. And then I would take my meds, some ibuprofen with it, and it would go down to about 101. And then over the next few hours, it would just rise again. And it sucked. And I was singing and yelling and crying, and I thought I was going to die. I was obviously in pain from the op, but I was in just no fit state to do anything. My poor husband, I kept him up all night because I was just out of it. On Friday morning, my fever continued to get bad. It stayed up all day. I could not get it down. No matter what medicines I took, I could not get it down. I felt like crap. So this time I had my husband call the hospital because I felt like a little bit stupid. I was like, this, I'm sure it's just normal, but it just doesn't feel normal. And so my husband called the hospital, and he talked to another surgeon on call, and that surgeon said, no, don't worry about it. It's fine. She's probably just getting the anesthesia out. Don't worry about it. Is she vomiting? And my husband said no. They're like, oh, is there any redness or tenderness? Is it hot? Is her skin hot? None of that was happening. So except for the fever, obviously my skin was hot from fever, but not from any redness or anything. There was no indication that there was any sort of anything. So my husband was like, just suck it up. Do your best. And so I was allowed to have a shower that day. So I tried to take a shower, and the room started spinning, and I almost passed out. So I kind of said, never mind, and got back dressed again and just huddled up on the recliner and just did my best to get on with it. And again, another night where it was really, truly horrific. Not as bad as the first night, but still not great. I was just feeling awful. And then Saturday came around, and I was still had this high fever, and for some reason there was like a weird couple hours where it just ebbed, where I just was like, I think I'm feeling a little bit better, and my fever went way down. It went back down to like 99, and I was like, oh, maybe I've turned a corner. Oh, maybe it was just the anesthesia. Fantastic. And then, like, my husband took the kids to go to the gym, and I laid down for a nap. And when I woke up, my husband came home and kind of woke me up. And when I woke up, I knew something was wrong. I took my temperature; it was 104, and I was like, "Oh crap!" So again, my husband called the surgeon on call, and they said, your thermometer is wrong. I just think your thermometer is wrong. There's no possible way she could have a fever that high for that long. So I think your thermometer is wrong. Have you tried it on anyone else? And so I was just like, are you freaking kidding me? So I tried so I tried the thermometer on my husband, and it was 98.5, so perfectly normal. Tried it back on me, and it was over 103. I had taken some meds by that point. And so the surgeon was just basically like, look, I don't think there's anything wrong, but if you guys think there's something, then just go to the ER. So we were like, okay. So we went to the ER, and basically I couldn't even walk. I had to go in a wheelchair because it was just so bad. And they got me in there. They did the triage, and they came and got me in the waiting room, and they told my husband, because he was there with the kids because we couldn't find anyone to watch them. And they were like, oh, just wait here. We'll just be 5 minutes. Just going to go back there and get her triaged. And so he was waiting out there, and they took me back, and again, they took my temperature, which was 103 plus, and my heart rate, which I didn't realize, but my heart rate was over 144, and I had just been sitting in a wheelchair the whole time, so that was my resting heart rate. And so they're like, okay, that's probably not a good thing. They knew I'd had the op, so they were just kind of like immediately on, the lookout for infection. And basically I ended up back there for like almost an hour. My husband's finally texting me like, are you coming out? And I was like, I don't know what's going on. But I could hear them talking in the hallway, and they were basically saying things like, oh, get her a room. She needs to be in a room right now. They put me ahead of a guy who had a heart attack. Like, that's how bad it was. They were that concerned. They said I was top priority, which was really, really weird. Kind of like, I was too out of it and too sick to like think too much on it at the time, but I did kind of clock it. So anyway, they finally, after a long, long time, I told Mark, go home, take the kids home, and he got his mom to come over to watch them for a little bit, so because we didn't know how long I'd be there or what was going to happen. So they finally got me into one of the trauma rooms, and the surgeon came in to talk to me, and actually, it was a resident on call. It wasn't even a surgeon. It was just the regular ER doc, and he was amazing. He kept apologizing. He was so furious that all the times I had called and they had told me nothing was wrong. He just basically was just shocked by this. He said, that shouldn't have happened. You should have been in here, days ago. So basically they did a bunch of tests. They did an EKG because, like I said, my heart rate was so fast. They had me hooked up to blood pressure monitors. I had an IV. They took me for a CT scan with contrast, which meant they had to inject me with dye that filled up all my arteries and stuff so that they could see inside, because they were really concerned because of the heart rate that I might have a blood clot or something to that effect. So that sucked. But that was all fine, except it came back, it showed that there was a lot of weird pockets of fluid in my right breast. And I have to tell you that after the first surgery, they didn't actually put in drains or anything, which I was really glad about. But so there was these pockets of fluid in my breast. So when I got back to the room, the surgeon on call was there, and he was the one that had talked to my husband and told me my thermometer was wrong. So that was really interesting. Yeah, he just started talking to me, and he was saying that, he was going to discuss it with my surgeon, but that like he inspected my breast, and he was saying it doesn't look infected, it doesn't look to be infected. He couldn't really see what was wrong. And as he was talking to me, he's just sitting there having a conversation with me, and he just casually reaches into the drawer next to him and pulls out this needle. And it's like, it's a syringe, but it's got like a needle this long. And I was just kind of like, okay, what's it doing with that? And as he's talking to me, and obviously my boobs are just out for anybody to see, and they didn't even shut the curtain properly. But he's just sitting there talking to me, and he just kind of touches my boob and sticks the needle inside and starts pulling, sucking crap out of it. And I was just like, did you just stab me in the boob? It was a little crazy. But yeah, so he pulled out some of the gunk, and he was looking at it, and he seemed very confused about it. Like, I think he didn't really know what to think, because he was saying it looked kind of infected, but it didn't have a funky smell, and I don't really know. I had no idea what was going on. It was just so confusing. But anyway, he said he'd gonna go talk to my surgeon, and then he'd come back to me. So he went out to the hallway, and that was the point where my husband came back. So literally the doctor walked out of the room, and 2 seconds later my husband walked in. And so I filled him in on what was going on, which was the high heart rate, and my blood pressure was funny, and I was just having issues. And he basically, he was like, okay, well, let's figure out what's going on. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. And by this point, they'd given me some meds for nausea, and I totally forgot, one of the main reasons that we ended up going back to the hospital, and just going to the ER, is because I was throwing up. After I woke up from that nap and I had the high fever, I started throwing up, and it was green and it was gross. And so that combined with the high fever, I think, was enough for him to say go to the ER. So that's why we went to the ER. So anyway, they'd given me anti-nausea meds. They'd given me some Tylenol. I think my fever had been brought down to like 101 or something, so that was good. But they basically decided, after you talked to my doctor, they said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to admit you overnight. We're going to give you lots of fluids. We're going to give you, some pain meds, and, hopefully you'll be better in the morning. And I was like, okay, do what you got to. So they said very vaguely as well, they said, possibly, if it doesn't improve, we might have to go back for some more surgery. And I was like, and he said, well, that's a worst case scenario. Don't worry. And I was like, okay. So basically, I got admitted to a hospital room. Mark came up with me, got me settled, and then left because his mom couldn't watch the children all night. So they left, and he went back home and took care of the kids, and I stayed in and tried to get a good night's sleep, which was hard, because anybody who's ever tried to sleep in a hospital, you'll know how hard that is. So yeah, that was Saturday night, and so early Sunday morning, and I remember just all night, it was just not good. I was just in so much pain, and so that my fevers never went down, my heart rate wouldn't go down, no matter how many IV fluids they gave me, no matter what they were pumping inside of me, nothing was working. So the same surgeon guy, who said my thermometer was broken, who I will always remember him that way. He came at like 6 o'clock in the morning and kind of woke me up, and he's like, Miss Reed. I was like, yeah. He's like, yeah, we're taking you for surgery. And I was like, So he said, yeah. I was like, when? He's like, right now. I was like, oh my God. So I called Mark, woke him up, and said, tell the boys I love them, just in case. They're taking me for surgery. And he was freaking out because he couldn't get there. There's no one to watch the kids that early. He couldn't be with me. But, there's not much he could have done anyway. So I told him, just stay put, try and find somebody to watch them later in the day and come see me, and we'll figure it out. So they took me in for surgery, and they cleaned it all out, and when I woke up, I was in recovery again. They said it had gone well. They had found some sort of infection, but they weren't sure what it was yet. But this time I had drains coming out of both breasts, and let me tell you one thing. In this world, you do not want drains. Drains are the worst thing ever. They're disgusting. Seeing your body fluids, and tissue and infection coming out of your body into a little, it's so gross. They're still in right now. I have to hide them in my clothes because they're so disgusting, and I don't get them out until next week, and it's horrifying. But anyway, so basically that was it. I got the surgery. I felt a lot better, like immediate better. My fever resolved within the day. Sunday I just spent in my hospital room. I was recovering. My fever went down. I think my heart rate came down to, it was about 111 instead of in the 140s, which is still high, but not nearly worrying as that. So I basically just spent the day, gaining strength and more IV fluids, constant antibiotics going in. And yeah, at the end of the day, I was feeling better. So Sunday night, I stayed again. They said they're definitely going to keep me at least until Monday, possibly longer. So I went to bed that night, thinking, okay. So again, another rough night's sleep. But this time it was punctuated by a really great experience where I had been taking a nap or late in the day on Sunday because I just kept passing out. Like I still am. I'm still like so woozy. Everything takes the wind out of me and I just sleep. But I had a really bad nightmare about my kids, and I woke up from it. It was dark, and I was just laying there. I'm used to nightmares, so I just know that just breathe deep and take a few minutes. And I was looking over at the door, and I saw these little like shadows in the corner, and it looked like little legs kicking. And I was like, what the heck is that? And I was like looking closer, and as my eyes adjusted, I realized it was like this giant spider in the corner of my room by my door, and it was just like hanging off the wall, and it was trying to get down. And I was like, holy crap! So I like turned my head and I turned the light on, and I was like looking at it, trying to find it, and I thought I saw it crawl back up above the door. And so I was like dinging my nurse bell. It took them like 4 minutes to get there, and when they finally came there, they're just like, that wasn't a spider. There's no spiders. You're fine. I was like, no, there's a spider. It's giant. I saw it. And they're like, have you seen anything else, honey? And I was like, no, I swear to God, it was a spider. It was real. And they didn't believe me, and they were just like, well, maybe, but, pain meds can play some funny tricks. And I was just like, I just wanted to smack them. I was like, how dare you disbelieve me? And each nurse that they transferred transferred information to, each one was like, oh, and she saw a spider earlier, so maybe watch out for that. And I was just like, you guys are dicks. But a couple days later, when I was at home, I realized I was hallucinating pretty badly on my pain meds, and I started seeing bubbles filling up my living room, and then swirling lizard people were dancing. And so I think it was very conceivable that the spider I saw actually was a proper hallucination, and I had no idea, and I was so mad at these people for not taking me seriously. But drugs will do that, apparently. I stopped taking them as soon as I realized that I was hallucinating. I'm just on ibuprofen now, which is pretty hardcore. This is a lot of pain for just ibuprofen. It's not even like 800 milligram full dose Motrin. It's like 400 milligrams every 6 hours. So I'm pretty proud of myself for making it through this pain. But I will always laugh when I think back about the hallucinations that I had. But anyway, as far as the breasts themselves, again, this is so long-winded, and I'm so sorry. If you've watched all this, you are a rock star. But as far as the breasts themselves, they are a lot smaller, obviously. I was a double J when I started. And I don't really know what I am now, because it'll be a while before I have any indication. But this shirt that I'm wearing right now, I used to not be able to wear it because it wouldn't close across my chest. And now it's like super baggy. So I've definitely taken a lot off. And if you look in the mirror, you can kind of see they're way smaller and they're perkier. The great thing is that my nipples, you can totally tell that they're functioning fine. They get little, they stick out quite a bit. They're looking really healthy. The stitches underneath my breast, I think I broke one open last night when I was in the car. I had to go to, we just bought a house, so we were doing the inspection. And so I had to go with my husband to that, and just bumping in the car, I guess I wasn't really supported properly. And so my right breast, underneath, it just it was really hurting. And when I got home, there was bleeding a bit. So I think I just knocked a stitch or something. And I've still got the drains in, which is the worst part. I could deal with the pain. I can deal with how I look like Frankenboob, but the actual drains, I would not ever. Oh, it's horrible. The other thing that I would say is the emotional impact of having this is huge, especially because everything went wrong. I'm a lot. Obviously, I was hindered by the 3 days of fever and then the hospitalization and everything, so I'm way behind in my recovery where I thought I'd be at this time. And so things like my work responsibilities have been kind of getting me in trouble because I haven't been able to hit my deadlines that I'm supposed to, which is really hard. And my kids, that's been the hardest part, is that I can't pick up my baby. He doesn't understand. My older two, they're 4 and 2, and they are at least understanding. You can kind of reason with them a little bit, but the baby doesn't understand. He just wants mommy. And he's still, when his dad puts him in my lap and I'll kind of cradle him for a couple minutes, he still wants to go for the boob because he was a breastfed baby. and that's hard. But mostly, like, this morning almost broke me because my 2-year-old, he's almost 3 now, but he's 2, and I think it's been really hitting him hard. My almost 5-year-old, he knows, what's going on. He kind of understands that mommy had surgery, mommy's a little sick and sore, mommy has an owie, we can't touch it, we got to be careful and gentle, and he's cool with that, and he'll just crawl up beside me and be very gentle. But my 2-year-old, he understands it kind of, but not really, and he just wants mommy to hold him. And this morning he was up really early, and I've been sleeping on the couch, and so he got up, and it was still dark outside, and he came up and he just kind of grabbed on to either side of me and just put his head in my lap, and I was just holding him and whispering and telling him I loved him and stroking his hair, and he was very loving this morning. And then it was time for him to go to daycare. This is a couple hours later, and he kind of crawled up on the couch and put his body across my lap and was saying, Mommy, Mommy, I want to stay with Mommy. Can I please stay home, Mommy? I just want to stay with Mommy. And he started crying, and I started crying, and his dad was in a hurry because they were going to be late, and he was kind of having to rip him away from me, and it was excruciating. And I didn't anticipate being in that position now, I thought I'd be a lot farther along in my recovery. That said, it's only been 8 days since the first surgery, so, I think I'm doing pretty well for having had an emergency surgery in the middle there and an infection to deal with. So it's been hard, but we're making it through. So I guess I'm trying so hard to make sure that I chronicle all of this so people who might need to see it get to see it. People who are in my position, because I was looking up breast reduction logs before I had my surgery to try and kind of see the reality of it, and all I found were people who were kind of months or years out of their surgery who were recounting it. And that's hard because you forget things, and you don't necessarily remember the pain or the emotional toll or anything. And yeah, you have a good before and after, but you don't necessarily know what it's like in the throes. And the people that I found were mostly younger women who had the surgery young and who weren't necessarily a mom who has 3 young kids, or who is, a full-time mom. And so this is a huge thing to consider if you are considering the surgery. Right now, and this is me being completely honest, right now it's not worth it to me. I wish I hadn't done it. And everybody keeps telling me you'll feel differently in a few months when you're recovered. The kids won't remember, that you couldn't play with them for a little while, and they'll be fine, and they'll, they forget, and you'll make it up to them, and you'll have much more energy and better quality of life, and that's all true, I'm sure. But right now, in the throes of it, I don't feel it was worth it, and I wish I hadn't had it done. So there you go, regret. Hopefully I can update this at some point in the future and say, actually, you know what, it was worth it. But there you go. Thanks for watching.